Welcome, welcome, welcome. Oh boy, folks. We needed that game. The Mets completely destroy the Washington Nationals 19-5. And you know what, folks? We needed this so bad. Our pitchers needed this game. Take stress off the pitchers. Urena, you know what? He was the sacrificial lamb. He pitched the last 3 innings to take stress off of the bullpen. But this game saw a breakout performance from Mr. Brandon Nimmo. And I personally was calling out Brandon Nimmo, who had been mostly in the cleanup spot this whole year, and you know what? Quite frankly, hasn't been stepping up. He was in a slump. He was certainly in a slump, but you know what? Talk about a slump buster. Oh my goodness. 2 home runs, 9 RBIs, almost literally in that last inning, almost could have gotten to double digits. Folks, this was a game that the New York Mets needed. Almost, it feels like every single pitch, every single inning, every single out was high leverage. That takes a toll on teams. And, these are the type of games that you need. The Mets have the type of offense that these games should happen every so often. And I'm not, maybe this is a very exaggerated blowout, but the Mets offense should give the bullpen, should give the pitching staff some sort of cushion. Now, you saw today what a full working lineup looks like. I was waiting to see Alvarez come back. Now you see Alvarez coming back into the lineup, and he started it off in the second inning. Obviously he had the big home run the other day, and then you see Mr. McNeil, you can kind of say went McNuts today. The squirrel actually had a very good game. He started it off in the second inning, had a nice 10 pitch at bat. Then he ended up having a sac fly. Then he ends up having a home run a little later in the game. I believe he drove in 3 RBIs. The squirrel had a very, very good game. Multiple hits, scored a run. So the Squirrels doing, pretty good so far. Thus far, Acuna had 3 hits. Soto had 2 hits. Lindor didn't have a couple hits, but he got hit by a pitch multiple times in the 7th inning. Alonso, 2 hits, 3 runs scored. Winker, everybody got into the action. This was a fun game. But more importantly, this was a game that the Mets needed. But also more importantly, this was a game that the Mets needed after that horrible loss on Sunday. You always want to see how this team responds. And I think it was Johnny who predicted a blowout. And Richard, who was saying that the Mets haven't had any dominating wins. Well, Richard, this one is for you, especially. So, and then, I really, 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 honestly, I wanted to see this. This was a full effort from the lineup. You saw the lineup clicking. Vientos getting that home run off of Amin Rosario in the 9th inning. And you know what? As much as I wanted to see Nimmo come up with runners on base, he already had 9 RBIs. Multiple home runs. It was nice to see Mark Vientos hit a 3-run homer. That gave him 14 RBIs in the season. You want everybody to get going. You want everybody to get confidence from this game, get going. I believe Vientos, who had this is a multi-hit game from him. He's going to have confidence from this. Nimmo hopefully takes confidence. You should. 4 hits, 9 RBIs. That tied the Mets record. Tying Carlos Delgado. That is something. That is really something. Brandon Nimmo, Again, we were talking about him slumping, but Brandon Nimmo, this game, he tied the Mets home run lead. Uh, um, Pete Alonso had 6 home runs. Now Brandon Nimmo is tied. I believe he has 21 RBIs. So Brandon Nimmo is literally set to have over 30 home runs and 100 RBIs. He's batting 220 on the season. I mean, honestly, this lineup has a lot of potential to have multiple 100 RBI guys. You would expect Lindor to be close to 100 RBIs, Soto close to 100 RBIs, Pete Alonso close to 100 RBIs or over, Nimmo close or over, Vientos close or over. I mean, Alvarez has got pop. I mean, this is why we've been saying for the longest time, and they predicted before the season started, why the Mets were predicted to potentially have the best offense in baseball. They were sleeping the whole year. Hopefully, a game like this jump starts the lineup. Again, we were waiting for McNeil, who, whether you like him, hate him, he is a professional bat. He is a guy who obviously won a batting title. He is a guy, hopefully, he's good every other year. It seems like him. So hopefully this is his on year. Hopefully McNeil has things right mentally. And I'm hoping for the best for him. And again, you had a guy coming in today, Urena, perfect. You brought him in the 7th inning to eat up a couple innings. I believe at that point we were up. What were we up in the 7th inning? 2, 3, 6. So I believe it was 11-0 around there. It was around 11-0. And then we scored 4 more runs in the top of the 5th. And then in the bottom of the 5th, at the bottom of the 8th inning, you see the Nationals score 5 runs, and that made it 15-5. In the back of my head, I'm like, oh my God, I'm thinking the worst. I'm thinking the worst. But thank God they brought Ahmed Rosario to come in the bottom of the 9th, and the Mets were able to pad that lead to make it 19-5. But a good all-around performance. You got to give Griffin Canning credit. Griffin Canning today locating the fastball, using the slider effectively. But really, at the end of the day, he was really using that changeup, and it looks like, his changeup movement is similar to Clay Holmes, almost like the kick changeup. You see it moving in on righties in a way. Away from lefties and in on righties. So it has similar movement to Clay Holmes' kick change. I don't really hear them calling it the kick change, but it has that type of dynamic movement. So, Griffin Canning already early on is 4-1 with a 2.61 ERA. I mean, you really got to be happy, ecstatic that this is the type of April that you're getting from Griffin Canning. I mean, we gave him $4 million on the year. So, I mean, you got to be happy about that. Kranick comes in, pitches another scoreless inning. He's got a 2.55 ERA on the year. Kranick, another surprise. I mean, both Canning and Kranick, I mean, those were 2 guys that, before this season started, you wouldn't really pencil them in as high leverage, effective guys. But these guys are doing more than just eating up innings. They are being competitive, and actually, in some instances, they are being dominant. So, you give those guys credit. You give the lab credit. Hopefully, we can get Jose Budo back on track. He's been really shaky the last couple outings, but that's where the lab has to really kind of prove itself, because the lab has shown to get the best out of some guys. But what about the guys who are in a rut? What about the guys who are getting beat up? How do the Mets course correct those guys? And that's what I'm interested to see. How is Jose Budo? How are we going to kind of not fix him, but get him really back on track? And again, the bullpen really needed that rest, especially with, Diaz being not that, I don't know. Diaz, I guess the Mets are really kind of want to play it conservative with Diaz, especially after the hip thing last week. And then you got AJ Minter on the sidelines. Right now, Daniel Nunez still on the sidelines. So you want to play it close. You don't want anybody else getting injured out of the pen. Okay, so Griffin Canning did well. Starting pitches are still doing well. But again, this was a laugher. This was a game that we certainly needed, and I think it really kind of all started. We get it going in the top of the second inning. And you get it going from the guys who have been really slumping. Mark Vientos starts it off with a nice line drive single. Then you got Brandon Nimmo. Brandon Nimmo has had a very tough series. He starts his big night off with a single. So it's first and second, and Francisco Alvarez. And Francisco Alvarez, this is, as much as you love Torrens, Francisco Alvarez, he's going to give you that slug. He's going to give you those special hits, and that's what he does. He doubles on a line drive to left field. Alex Cole, not a very good game. Mark Vientos scores. Brandon Nimmo goes to third. Then you have Jeff McNeil come up, and this was a special at bat. Jeff McNeil, first of all, in this at bat, it was a 10-pitch at bat. He took a lot of close pitches. There were 2 or 3 pitches that could have been borderline strikes, but Jeff McNeil took. So that Jeff McNeil is seeing the ball a bit better. He's not and I like this version of Jeff. I like the version of Jeff who takes pitches, who is a bit more calm. Jeff has a tendency of swinging at the first pitch, and a lot of times he's successful, but a lot of times he's not. He swings at this first pitch almost 50% of the times on certain years, but this was an at-bat where he didn't, and he ended up having a very productive at-bat. He hits a deep fly ball to right field. Brandon Nimmo was able to score, and the Mets do what the Mets have been really good at doing. They pad their lead early on. Late in the games, they haven't been able to do it as much, but, in the first couple of innings, they'll get a couple of runs here and there, so they get 2 runs, and they really kind of wear down the opposing pitcher. Okay, so as we continue, we go to the 5th inning, and in the 5th inning, that's when we see the Squirrel hit a bomb. He hits a deep fly ball to right center field, and the Mets jump out to a 3-0 lead. Now, here's the thing with McNeil. Now, I know McNeil is going to be a very controversial topic, right? What I care about is I want to win. I want to win no matter what. So if Jeff McNeil contributes to winning, great. Then there's another faction of fans saying, all right, great. Jeff McNeil's raising his trade value. So that's good too. At the end of the day, if the team is winning and Jeff McNeil is helping the team win, that's what I care about. And, the guy's got to be focused. So, he's literally on a 3-game hit streak as well. So he's had a hit in every single game. So he started off, his season very, very well. All right. So in the top of the 5th inning, we jump out to that 3-0 lead. Then in the 6th inning, we just continue to go to work. Jesse Winker, he walks in that inning. Mark Vientos walks. And Brandon Nimmo, again, he gets his 2nd hit of the game. And this was a 3-run homer. It would be his 5th home run on the season. And this is when the Mets start to pull away. This is what made the game 6-0. All right. So again, we continue in the inning. Francisco Alvarez flies out. And then again, you have Jeff McNeil. Jeff McNeil, another productive at bat. Jeff McNeil, after homering in the 5th, now he triples, and this ball was hit to left field. Alex Cole dove, and it got past him. So Jeff McNeil would eventually get a triple. So Jeff is having a very good game thus far. All right, so going to the bottom of the 6th inning, Max Kranick replaces Griffin Canning, and it's a fairly easy inning. Besides Keeper Ruiz getting a single, the Mets did a really good job. It was pretty easy. All right, so get to the top of the 7th inning, and the Mets go back to work. And this was the inning that really kind of made the lead double digits and kind of put the game out of reach. So it starts off with Francisco Lindor getting hit by a pitch. And if you're a Mets fan, all you're hoping is when a guy like Francisco gets hit by a pitch is, thank God, pray that he's not hurt. That's all you hope. I mean, you don't care about the guy getting on base. You just care about him not getting hurt. And it looks like Lindor didn't get hurt. So thank God. All right. So Lindor gets on base. Juan Soto doubles on a line drive to the left fielder, Alex Cole. And if you didn't watch the game, obviously, you know Juan Soto is a lefty, so him hitting a line drive to the left fielder, he goes oppo, and he sliced this ball line drive down the left field line. This is how Juan Soto hits. Usually when he's hot, he's driving it up the right center field alley. But I love to see this approach by Juan Soto. Most of the time he's been rolling over on the ball. He's been ahead. He's been hitting a lot of grounders. I like to see this approach by Soto. So he doubles down the left field line. Francisco Lindor goes to third. And again, the New York Mets go to work. They have second and third. Pete Alonso, the polar bear, is up. Pete singles on a ground ball to center field. Juan Soto goes to third, and Francisco Lindor scores, and that made the Mets go out to a 7-0 lead. So again, it's starting to get to a little bit of a blowout, but this is when the batters cannot give up any at-bats, right? This is what I want to see, how the batters approach the situation at this point. Because if you remember, yesterday we were up 7-1. Right? So, in the back of my head, I'm like, all right, I hope nobody takes anything for granted, and I hope our batters continue to battle, continue to fight. So this was a very important part in the game for me and for the New York Mets. All right, so at that point, 7-0. Jesse Winker's up. Jesse Winker continues to work the count, and he eventually works out a walk. Pete Alonso goes down to second. This brings up Mark Vientos. Mark would battle, but he would end up striking out. All right, so Mr. Brandon Nimmo would come up to the plate with two men on. I'm sorry, he would come up to the plate. It would be a bases loaded situation, and Brandon Nimmo would hit a grand slam. Soto scores, Alonso scores, Jesse Winker scores, and by this time, literally Nimmo is having a very, very, very good day. All right. After this, the Mets continue to battle and put good at-bats on despite it being 11-0. Francisco Alvarez singles on a sharp line drive to center. Jeff McNeil flies out. Acuna singles. Francisco Lindor is hit by a pitch. And now you have Jose Azocar coming to the plate, bases loaded. And at this time, most people are wondering, oh, you got Juan Soto coming up, bases loaded. But at this time, or by this time, the New York Mets had taken out Juan Soto. And, at the end of the day, you want to see him come up with bases loaded. But at the end of the day, you got to remember, you want your $800 million man potentially getting injured in an 11-0 game. Wouldn't really make sense. So you have Jose Azocar in there. Jose Azocar ends up grounding out, and that would end the inning. So again, as we spoke about, we have he didn't enter the game yet, but the bottom of the seventh inning, you have Jose Urena making his Mets debut. And, on the broadcast, Murphy is talking about how he's faced Urena, how he's 0 for 15 against Urena in his career. And then you see Urena start to throw the ball. He's hitting 98, this and that. And, they're talking about it would be great for him to eat up these next 3 innings, and that would be perfect. And I'm like, yep, that's the plan. That's what's going to happen. So in the 7th inning, bottom of the 2nd inning, it was fairly easy. Alex Cole flies out, Jacob Young grounds out, and CJ Abrams lines out. So if you're a Mets fan, you are up 11-0. Your pitchers have done great. You have Urena to close out the game. Great. All is well in Mets land. All right, so getting to the top of the 8th inning, the Mets do what the Mets have been doing. They continue to add on, and they continue to not waste any at-bats. So Mets, Pete Alonso comes up. He singles. Jesse Winker singles. Mark Vientos walks. And you have the man of the moment, the man of the day coming up. Brandon Nimmo, again, has multiple people on base. He doubles on a ground ball to right field. Pete Alonso scores. Jesse Winker scores. Mark Vientos was really running as best as he could, but they hold him at third base. I mean, that could have been a bases clearing it could have been a bases clearing double. It wasn't. That would be Nimmo's ninth RBI, and literally the Mets, that gave the Mets a 13-0, hopefully insurmountable lead. Very impressive. Very impressive, the Mets at bats. I mean, they had 4 innings of 3+ runs scored. So, hopefully the Mets save some runs for tomorrow and beyond. But this was a day that the Mets had up and down the lineup. That's what you love, up and down the lineup. Everybody got into the mix. Everybody got a hit except for Lindor, but Lindor still find a way to be effective. He got hit twice. He scored a run, but everybody else got a hit. And, Taylor ended up pinch hitting for Lindor late in the game. So if you really want to consider it, Lindor's spot in the lineup got a hit. So everybody's spot in the lineup got a hit. That's what you really like to see. The Mets got 21 hits. Oh boy. And I like to see Acuna, even though he wouldn't be the star of the game, it would most likely have to be Nimmo, hands down, obviously. But Acuna, I love the way Acuna was going the other way. I love the way Acuna was hitting line drives. I love the way he was battling. Acuna, I'm really happy about the lineup right now. I'm really, really happy. So great game. Okay, so the bottom of the eighth inning, the Mets were up by a lot. It was 15-0. 15-0. So you have Urena come out for the bottom of the eighth inning. So Urena gives up a home run to James Wood, made it 15-1. Then he gives up a home run to Nathaniel Lowe, makes it 15-2. Then Riley Adams doubles, Jose Tina singles, Alex Cole singles, makes the game 15-4. Then you have a couple more singles, and the game would get to 15-5. James Wood was up at the plate, and there were two men on, so this could have been a 3-run homer. He ends up popping out to the left fielder, Brandon Nimmo, but potentially, he just missed it. He just got under it, but potentially that could have been a 15-8 if that ends up being a home run. And I am thinking in my head, please don't blow it. Luckily, James Wood obviously flied out to Nimmo, and the inning ended with it being 15-5. So we get to the top of the ninth inning, and the Nationals decide to bring in a player. They bring in Ahmed Rosario, former Met, and by then you knew the game was over. You can kind of exhale. The Mets tacked on. Jose Azocar, he singled. He got into the fun. Pete Alonso walked. Jesse Winker singled on a sharp line drive to right field. And then this is the at-bat that I highlighted in my beginning of my video. Mark Vientos would end up hitting a 3-run bomb. And this is, even though he hit it off a position player, these are the type of games and these are the type of moments where I think can get a guy like Mark Vientos going. So Mark Vientos hits a home run, and it's not easy to hit a home run off a guy who's pitching 50, 60 miles per hour, but he does. So he hits a 3-run homer. It makes the game 19-5, and then it brings up Brandon Nimmo. Brandon Nimmo at this point is, to get a 10th RBI, he'd have to hit a home run, but he ends up grounding out. That was the first out. Francisco Alvarez was brought up to the plate, and this is what I like. Don't give up at bats. Francisco Alvarez walks, and, you kind of see the people in the stands moaning, but this is a major leaguer. He's not going to just make an out. It's just not going to happen. Jeff McNeil comes up. He flies out. Another at bat I like, Luis Angel Acuna. He singles. Tyrone Taylor, he singles, and the last out of the game is made by Jose Azocar, or last out for the New York Mets. The bottom of the ninth was fairly quiet. Luis Garcia flies out. Nathaniel Lowe walks, and Riley Adams and Dylan Cruz both strike out to end the Mets blowout. The Mets end the series 2-2. They should have won 0-4. They most likely could have won 3 out of 4. I mean, that 7-1, come from behind win by the Nationals. That's an unacceptable loss by the Mets. So they should have at least won 3 out of 4, but it is a long season. Now we're going to go back to the Steve Cohen message because Steve Cohen, he has a message. He sent a clear message about the Mets defensive hiccups. So, and this is actually really good advice. So Steve Cohen was talking with John Heyman, and after Heyman asked him, how do you deal with the Mets hiccups, like the hiccups that happened on Sunday night? And he was specifically referring to the throw that Alonso made to Ryan Stanek that ended up having the Nationals score their winning run. So Cohen said this: you got to put it aside, right? And for me, that's great advice because a lot of times I tend to harp on these things. It really bothers me. I'm a fan first. I do this for fun, but it really bothers me to give up games that are winnable. Okay, so then Steve Cohen went on to say the season started, and I think we lost the first 2 out of 3 games or something. And I was starting to get annoyed. And then I said to myself, I got to relax. We have 159 games left. Cohen continued. So I'm trying to look at the big picture. And you can have games like that during the season. You don't know when, so you just kind of roll with it a little bit. But I think that's phenomenal advice by Steve Cohen. Everybody who is emotionally invested is going to get upset. Everybody who's emotionally invested is going to get happy with games like this. It's good to recognize that it is a long season. The Mets are in first place. Overall, we are doing phenomenal. And again, this is the first taste of us seeing our full offense. This is the first taste. We have McNeil back. We have Alvarez back. And I just want everybody to remember, like, McNeil, love him, hate him, he's still a former batting champion. Alvarez, Alvarez is a guy that I always looked at him as a guy who should be protecting Alonso in the lineup. I always looked at him as a guy who easily should be hitting 30 plus home runs. He's a guy that has power oppo. He's a guy who can hit a home run easily out of any park. This guy is super uber talented catcher. Last year he had his issues, but he was injured. This year he changed mechanics and he's healthy. So we should be seeing a very dynamic lineup, and putting McNeil in center field. A lot of people were worried about center field being underproductive. You get to see Acuna play second, McNeil plays center, Nimmo's playing a great left, you got Soto on right, you got Vientos going at third, you got your superstar MVP runner-up Lindor at short, you got Pete the Polar Bear at first, and you got a really up-and-coming star catcher behind the plate. This offense is special. This team is special. You still have the best pitching staff in all of baseball. And if I had to identify something, it's something that the Mets already know. The bullpen early on has been overworked. This is why the Mets, did what they did tonight. There was no doubt in my mind. Even I believe the Mets could have got to like 10 runs, and they probably wouldn't have went to a legit reliever. So the Mets are being smart. The Mets are trying to extend their starters. If you notice it, they're trying to extend their starters. And that is the theme. That's the one thing Griffin Canning said after the game. They said, how did you feel? He felt good, but the one thing he wanted to do is go further, and that's the one thing he's going to work on in his next game. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to extend Holmes. They're trying to extend Kodai Senga. McGill, they pushed McGill into the 7th inning. They're trying to get length out of the starters to take stress off of the bullpen, but at the end of the day, the biggest component that takes stress off of the pitchers, the pitching staff, is going to be the offense. And this is the first example of our offense really clicking and getting going. All right, folks, let me know what you think. Brandon Nimmo, phenomenal. 4 hits, 9 RBIs, record day, hands down, MVP of today. You can't give it to anybody else. The guy had a record day. He was He was freaking phenomenal. I mean, Brandon Nimmo, his season numbers. If you're like me, you always like to see the updated stats of our stars. That's always important. So Nimmo updated stats for 2025 is he's batting 218, 6 home runs, 21 RBIs. So Pete has 27 RBIs. He's 6 RBIs behind Pete. He's got the same amount of home runs as Pete, and he's batting 218 right now. So a couple more hits, he gets his batting average back up to respectability. His OPS is still below 700, so that's got to get up there. His slug is still 418. His on base is 261. So Nimmo still has a long ways to go, but today was a great step in the right direction. Mr. Mark Vientos, again, he actually had a great game too as well. And Mark Vientos, he currently sits at 219. And all these guys they were under 200 a couple of days ago. So it's good to see him. He's at 219 now. His batting average, 3 home runs, 14 RBIs, on base 303, slug 385. His OPS is under 700 as well. But these are all guys that career OPS is over 800. So you got to expect everybody to get going very, very soon. All right, folks, let me know what you think. How excited are you? We are going to have a 3-game set with the Diamondbacks. Let me see what the Diamondbacks record is. All right. So the Diamondbacks record is 15-13. So it's very competitive out there in the West. You have the San Francisco Giants at 19-10, the Dodgers at 18-10, the Padres at 17-11. Wow, the Padres. The Mets fans were upset. We lost 2 out of 4. The Padres have lost 4 in a row. So, they're going in a little bit of a slump. So, good for us. So they're 17-11. And then you have the Arizona Diamondbacks at 15-11. So the Diamondbacks are a very interesting team. They are led by their young superstar, Corbin Carroll, who started off the season very, very hot. He's got 9 home runs, 23 RBIs. He's batting 308 on the season, a 376 on base, a 667 slug, over 1,000 OPS. So Corbin Carroll has started off the season very, very hot. Another one of their hitters who's been doing very well in the power department is Eugenio Suarez. He has 10 home runs, 20 RBIs. His batting average is not the best. 206, 313 on base. But those two guys have almost 20 RBIs between them. So they are doing very, very well. Josh Naylor, their first baseman. Is batting 318. He's got 34 hits on the season. 4 home runs, 19 RBIs. So the offense of the Diamondbacks looks to be pretty good. Looks to be pretty decent. See how their pitchers are doing. Pitchers, not so much. Zach Gallen, who should be the ace, or not should be. They signed Corbin Burns, but what their pitchers have not gotten off to a great start. Corbin Burns, 5 games, 0-1 with a 4.05. Zach Gallen, 1-4, 5.57. Eduardo Rodriguez, 1-2, 4.40. Brandon, I don't even know how to say this last name. He's 5-1 with a 2.78. So I got to say he is doing the best by far. Merrill Kelly is 3-1 with a 4.41. So that's the problem. That is the problem with the D-backs. So they are hitting. They just are not pitching right now. They are not pitching. At least their starting rotation is not doing well at all. Wow, I'm actually a little surprised by that, but their starters are not doing well. So let me look at the projected start tomorrow. Projected. All right, so tomorrow the projected matchup is going to be David Peterson. He's 1-1 with a 3.29 ERA versus Eduardo Rodriguez. He's a left-hander from obviously the D-backs. He's 1-2 with a 4.4 ERA, not doing well. Corbin Burns is set to pitch on Wednesday. Corbin Burns again is 0-1 with a 4.05. He hasn't gotten off to a good start. On Thursday, you have this is supposed to be a good matchup. You have Kodai Senga going up against Zach Gallen. Zach Gallen again not doing good, 1-4 with a 5.57. Um, and then on Friday we're going to be playing St. Louis, and we should be playing in St. Louis too. And it looks like Sonny Gray is lined up for that start. So, no, we'll see. We will see. I mean, so we should have the pitching advantage, and with our offense getting hot, that I like that. I really like that. And these games are at Citi Field, so the Mets have had a dominant time at Citi Field. So let's get this going. Fans, go out to Citi Field, support the team, be that 10th man. Let's continue to build a lead over let's continue to build a lead out. Let's continue to be dominant. Let's continue to be the best team in baseball. And let's see if we can try to continue to give our bullpen a rest. All right, folks, thank you so much for listening. Like, subscribe. If you haven't gotten a chance yet, please, it really helps the channel. I really do appreciate it, and I thank you in advance. And then also, don't forget to drop a comment, anything, especially if you're new and you don't drop any comments, you just watch the videos. Let me know. Just say hi. You know, I'd love to hear from you. If I've never heard from you, that's awesome. Or if I haven't heard from you in a while, drop a comment, say hi. Let's go Mets. Good stuff. All right. Thank you, folks. I will speak to everybody soon. Great stuff. 19-5. You got to enjoy these ones, like Steve Cohen said. All right. Have a great night, folks.